Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Elaine Chim. I am the Global Head of Closed-End Products here at Apex Group. Today, we're going to focus on what is causing GPs to switch administrators, and I'm joined here today by our special guest, Matthew Semenza, who is a partner at LionPoint Group. LionPoint is the specialist alternatives consulting arm of Alpha FMZ, and you work very closely with clients in the private market space, providing them with advisory support, technology optimization strategies, and process transformation services. So welcome, Matt. Good morning, and thank you for joining me today.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. And thank you to you, Elaine, and the rest of the Apex team for having me participate in the session here today. Looking forward to it.
Great. So going straight into it. So you obviously work with different types of clients globally, predominantly in the private market space. When it comes to GPs, what are they typically asking you to help them with? And does it differ depending on the region or asset class?
Yep, good question. So at LionPoint, we work with GPs, LPs, family offices, and fund administrators across the private market space. And we really engage with our clients in a few different areas. So the first one is sort of strategic advisory. So on the strategy side, we help our clients define target operating models, develop technology roadmaps. We help facilitate RFPs to select both technology solutions as well as fund administrators. So helping them think through considerations about insourcing, outsourcing, co-sourcing, et cetera. We also offer services around report development, data governance, and broader data management. And then on the technology side, we partner with about 50 different software vendors, helping our clients to not only implement, but also manage and make sure they're getting the most out of these platforms on an ongoing basis. Some of the technology solutions that we partner with include Investtrend, Workiva, Allview, Lemonedge, Yardi, DealCloud, and many others. And I would say we also work with our fund admin clients, specifically to help support them in fund onboardings, data conversion, staff augmentation, and reporting as well. I think the overarching theme that we see across both regions and asset classes is that our clients want to make sure they're using technology effectively, right? So as they grow and look to scale their organizations, there becomes sort of that inflection point on that growth journey where it no longer makes sense to just add resources to support that AUM growth, and they realize they need to really invest in technology and process changes to make sure that they have a good operating model in place to scale effectively.
And certainly LionPoint has been a great partner for Apex as well. The benefits of outsourcing are well documented, right? So that includes scalability, right? The ability to lean on the extensive resources of a service provider like Apex Group. Also, to your point, access to technology is a key one. If your provider is investing in good and super innovative tech, then the GPs don't have to select, implement, and maintain their own expensive tech in-house, and that's an immediate cost saving for them. And then obviously access to industry best practices and know-how, given the number of clients we represent. So with all of that as the backdrop, we know to switch is a massive, massive undertaking. So in your experience, once a GP selects an administrator, what is causing GPs to switch, and what are some of the trends you're observing?
Yep. So a couple key points there. I think the first one is around data quality, right? What level of comfort as a GP do I have with the data or the files or the reports that I'm receiving on an ongoing basis from my fund administrator? Am I frequently finding errors or mistakes in that data, resulting in a lot of back and forth between me and my administrator when quarter end comes around? Or even worse, is it raising potentially questions with my LPs if there is a mistake in any of my reporting? So I think, data quality for me is probably the first and maybe most important one. The second, and these are kind of interconnected a bit, I would say, is probably staff turnover, right? So once you develop a good working relationship with your administrator, if that person or those people on that team who know the intricacies of your fund structures, your allocations, your investment vehicles, and any other complexities that are unique to your firm, leaves the administrator, that could obviously present a pretty big risk. And if from the admin side you're then required to plug someone else in who doesn't have all of that historical or institutional knowledge, it can obviously present a lot of challenges and ultimately result in some reduced data quality. So I think from an admin perspective, it's important to have a good kind of backup plan in place, make sure you're cross-training your teams, and just overall reducing that key person risk in case somebody
Right.
does depart the firm.
So basically, in summary, what you're saying is quality of output and operational resiliency, which I 100%
Yep.
agree with. So if a GP is switching, what are some of the key questions they should be asking any administrators that they are considering? Or put it another way, what are the key things Line Point looks for when you're advising a GP? Because you mentioned you're involved in RFPs, you're looking at transformation reviews. So while you're conducting those, what are you looking for, and what makes a administrator stand out?
Yep, good question. Yeah, so we help a lot of our clients, GPs, select fund administrators, and when we're going through that RFP process, I would say there's a couple of key things that we're looking for, and obviously this depends a bit on the client, perhaps where they're located, what type of strategies they have, et cetera. But number one, I would say, is the service offering. So depending on the functions or key functions that the firm is looking to outsource, does the fund administrator have solutions for those? So, fund accounting is probably one of the most common, but then we also think about valuations, custody, and some of the other areas that a firm might consider outsourcing.
Mhm.
Does the admin offer that kind of one-stop shop solution for all of those key functions? The other one is reputation, right? So being able to speak to industry peers, firms that are similar to theirs in size and scale and strategy, to understand how their relationship has been, things that have worked well and maybe things that haven't, I think is an important one. So making sure that you're doing your due diligence, reference calls, et cetera. And then the other is technology. So is the administrator actively investing in technology, or are they, let's say, 3 versions behind on their accounting platform? Are they investing in the
Mhm.
latest investor portal, valuation solutions, data warehouses, reporting solutions like Workiva, and other areas? So I think investment in technology is really important. And one of the things that historically has caused, I think, some GPs to hesitate to outsource is limited access to data. A
Mhm.
lot of firms like Apex and other administrators have been actively working more recently to enable that sort of real-time visibility and interaction with their data. And this kind of ties in with the technology conversation and investment in technology.
Mhm. I 100% agree with you, Matt. When we take on a switch or migration project, the areas we focus on initially are what are the existing processes and reporting requirements, because it's actually a key opportunity during a switch to help the manager relook and essentially revamp the current day-to-day operations, whether it's the existing reporting or the day-to-day, really with reference to current best practices, and really provide guidance around what we see other clients who are similar size and strategy, essentially their peers, what are they doing in the market? So there's a lot of value in revamping at that stage. I also think, to your point, flexibility as a service provider. Clearly at Apex, we provide a lot of solutions and connected solutions. So, for example, some managers may only be comfortable switching part of the book or a particular strategy at that point in time. So we really work with GPs to manage timing, sequencing, and also balance internal priorities. And then last but not least, the overarching theme, access to technology, right? The fact that we do have different technology solutions here really creates optionality for our clients, so that they know and we know what we are choosing as their tech stack is the most optimal technology for them. So agree with everything that you're saying. Um, Moving on, are you observing any trends emerging in the future? So what are the drivers, or what is driving GPs to switch more, do you think?
Yep. So a couple of things. I would say a lot of our clients are growing from one strategy or a single strategy shop into a multi-strategy. So for example, firms are expanding out of just private equity also into private credit. We've seen a lot of growth in that area, real estate and other areas as well. And so as firms expand their strategies into new areas, they may look at other administrators and see, better better service offerings around, for example, real estate or credit. So I think as an administrator, making sure that you have good, sound technology solutions in place and staff as well with expertise in across these different strategies is going to be important as a lot of the GPs expand into new strategies and new areas. I think another area that we've seen a lot of growth is in co-sourcing, a model where the GP will license the technology and the fund administrator will then log in to kind of run the day-to-day operations, book journal entries, cash reconciliations, et cetera. And this all ties back again to that access to data theme. And then also, there's been a lot of discussion around risk-based oversight. So a lot of our clients that have historically outsourced to a fund administrator, it's really figuring out like what is the right oversight model to get comfortable and confident in the data that your fund administrator is producing and providing without actually maintaining a full set of shadow books and records in-house. Obviously, maintaining a full set of shadow books and records requires a lot of investment in technology. You're doing a lot of duplicative work. So there's definitely a lot of downsides there, but it's definitely been a hot topic, the risk-based oversight and figuring out how to streamline and automate that using technology and developing good processes around it.
It is so interesting to hear you talk about risk-based oversight because it's an area that comes up a lot and increasingly so, to your point. And from my perspective, it's really centered around GP comfort levels. And you mentioned that as well. And that equates to, for me, the accessibility to relevant information for them to perform the adequate level of checks, right? Because, if insofar as they don't need to shadow and do too much themselves in-house, I think that is the key. So Apex, how we have made that data accessible is really to provide manager portal, right? A manager portal that gives GPs the ability to highly customizable and highly interactive fund, investor, and investment level reporting. And that is how at Apex we're solving for that because we think giving that data, you can get comfortable quite quickly. So switching gears a little bit, we touched on the importance of data. On the data point, 100% agree with you. There is so much focus on data, whether it's access to real-time data for decision making, or really ensuring that the service providers like us have the adequate tools, and we're investing in the tools for data aggregation, data visualization, etc. Co-sourcing, we mentioned that as well, is an area that you and I have discussed in the past, is increasingly becoming a viable, optimal option because I think it gives GPs that balance or best of both worlds, whereby they have access to real-time access to data, but they also have it can leverage the service provider's resources for operational processes. So can you talk a little bit more about co-sourcing models? What trends are you seeing here and whether that impacts a GP's decision to switch to a particular administrator?
Yep, certainly. I think, again, co-sourcing alongside the risk-based oversight, definitely two big trends that we're seeing across the space. I think over the past 5 or so years, our clients' technology stacks have matured immensely. So a lot of our clients now have a CRM, portfolio monitoring system, treasury, fund accounting, et cetera. And if they are outsourcing certain functions, I think it's really important that there is an easy way to integrate all of those platforms, right? So the co-sourcing model allows you to do that because the GP still maintains kind of control over those systems that while they are outsourcing some of the functions. So for example, if you're outsourcing fund accounting, you may have an eFront, InvestTran, AllView in place already. So being able to effectively still utilize your fund administrator's resources to do the day-to-day operations, book journal entries, run reports, cash reconciliations, et cetera, but still having the ability to integrate that platform with the other solutions in your technology ecosystem. So I think that's definitely one of the big benefits. Also, a lot of our clients maintain a pretty lean back office team, and the co-sourcing model allows them to continue to do that. It gives you an easy way to scale up or scale down, depending on the growth of your firm, quarter end reporting cycles, and things like that. There's also then you don't have to go through that process to reconcile in a situation like a full shadow set of books and records where you need to reconcile data between your admin system and your internal system. Co-sourcing model kind of alleviates that bottleneck or pain point.
Yeah,
And I think
agree
from
with
the
you.
administrator side, I would just add one more thing. Sorry. It, I would say it definitely, I view this as giving those fund admins that are open to a co-sourcing model a leg up versus their competition. Because
Mm.
I think I understand and recognize that there are some challenges around scalability, training, and some other things from an administrator perspective with offering or staffing this type of model. But I think as we see firms again drive towards that access to data and oversight theme, I think this trend will continue, and the firms that do offer this as an option um, will be kind of shortlisted on a lot of these RFPs that we're conducting.
We're seeing that too. So at Apex, we've been very successful supporting co-sourcing models on any system. I think largely because we have access to all the key applications, and importantly, I think it's the people, right? Having the application is one thing, but you really need to invest in the people who know the application and really support these applications on the back end. So whether it's the report writers, the coders, the back end application specialists, investing in that area has been quite instrumental in helping us be successful in supporting these co-sourcing models. And I think the co-sourcing clients really benefit from that knowledge as well because they suddenly have access to our teams as part of the overall service and their knowledge. And it really maximizes, I think, again, operational efficiency. So I agree. I think it's also becoming a really viable, optimal option for some GPs. Aside from co-sourcing, do you often see managers say diversify their outsourcing options? So what I mean by that, for example, if we typically see at Apex very large managers having multiple administrators, what are you seeing? What are your thoughts in this area?
Yeah, I would say what we've generally seen is some of the larger managers, let's say 100 billion plus, do diversify and spread out either their funds or their strategies across multiple administrators as a way to simply reduce risk, right? Not putting all of their eggs in one basket in case something does go wrong. Um, I also think that, for the most part, smaller to mid-sized GPs generally tend to try to stick to one centralized administrator just because it can kind of simplify things, help standardize the reports they're receiving,
Mhm.
the systems that they may or may not have access to, the teams that they're interacting with. Also, if they're building out any form of data ingestion from their fund administrator into their own technology ecosystem, doing that from a single service provider is much easier to do than it is to do from multiple service providers. And that's something, one of the challenges I think some of the larger administrators face is when they do some of the larger GPs face if they do outsource to multiple admins. It's then how do you standardize all of that information, right? Are you receiving different formats, different structures, different reports from all of those administrators? Are you receiving different data sets? So if I'm building out like a data warehouse or something to that effect internally, how could I standardize all of that and get it into one sort of normalized place that then I can interact with, build reporting off of, et cetera.
You've kind of stolen some of our tagline, right? So here at Apex, we're obviously focused on providing that turnkey solution to managers so that they can access all the necessary services that are connected that they require through a single relationship. So what we talk about here to our clients is obviously our single source solution. But thank you for that. I think I'm going to switch perhaps to some questions from the audience. Just going to see here. Um, Oh, this is an interesting one. So anything that would pause a manager to make a switch. So it's a funny way of looking at it, but any comments there, Matt?
Yeah, I mean it's not easy, right? It's a big effort. It's similar to implementing a new accounting platform, like migrating all of your your data, your processes, et cetera, developing that new relationship. It's a lot of work. So I would say, that the level of effort and the cost is high.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would also say that if you have built from the GP lens any type of data ingestion or integration capabilities with your current administrator, all those pipes need to be rewired, if you will. So yeah, I mean it's a big lift. It's timely, it's costly, but ultimately, from a GP perspective, if they're not happy with the service that they're getting, they're having again a lot of data quality issues, the relationship is poor, there is ultimately a point where they will pull a trigger if needed.
Right. I agree with you. I also see sometimes what pauses the switch is, you mentioned the pipes, right? So the GPs themselves may have invested a lot in piping with their data with their existing providers, and really to unpick that and rewire that can take a lot of effort. But I agree. If it makes sense to switch, there's always a good reason to. Um, Another question that's coming in, there's still a large portion of managers, particularly in the US, who do not outsource. Why do you think that is the case? Any comments there? You must see a lot of clients or speak to a lot of clients where they're thinking about doing it, but not quite pulling the trigger. So what are some of the talking points there when you're dealing with these clients?
Yep, good question. So I think this also ties in with some of the themes we discussed before, but I think, part of it is culture, right? Like that idea of maintaining control of everything in-house, keeping that secret sauce, if you will, everything kind of inside those four walls within the organization. Some of the firms obviously also have a lot of complexity, so they don't really feel comfortable that a fund administrator may have the technology or expertise to handle some of those um, fund specific complexities that they may have. And again, I think access to data, right? Having the data at their fingertips, the ability to interact with it. Ultimately, as a GP, they are responsible for the reporting that goes out the door. So I think part of it is also simply a control thing.
I agree. There was a question I asked before. I don't think you quite answered it, so I'm just going to circle back there if you don't mind. My question was really around, do you see any regional differences or asset class, depending on the strategy and asset class, the way managers are prioritizing potentially switches? Any comments around that?
Yeah, I would say in Europe, I think, traditionally we've seen a heavier usage of outsourcing, and I think there's a couple different reasons for that. One of the big ones is jurisdictional consideration. So if a fund's legal document only allows for, the data or the administrator to be domiciled in a certain region, that's a big consideration across Europe. I think in the US, there's been a little bit more hesitancy. That said, I think firms are trending towards outsourcing more. So I think that trend is continuing to grow in the US, but I'd say overall it's generally lagged a bit behind where Europe is today.
Hmm. I think we're seeing similar trends there as well. Maybe a last question from me is you obviously work with a lot of partners. You mentioned that in the beginning. How do you go about selecting, right? Because if I think about even, say, any of the solutions, where there's general ledger, where there's digital onboarding, where there's portals, there's always multiple vendors who are best in class, right? In their view. How do you go about selecting which vendor to work with? Because that obviously drives your strategy and how you work with your clients.
Yep. So with our selection process, what we typically do is we'll do requirements gathering or interviews with our clients to understand what exactly they need, right? So what are their technical and functional requirements for the solution that they are looking to select? And, some of those are relatively standard across firms, and other of them are pretty unique. So complexities around allocations, equity pickups, things like that, any specific portal dashboarding capabilities that they're looking for. So we go through first the requirements gathering process, and then we'll put out an RFP to the vendors who are participating to see, what they're capable of, what they're not. We do some scorecarding off the back of that before we move into demonstrations. What we encourage our clients to do is really create tailored demonstration scripts to have vendors, not just show their off-the-shelf solution, but actually see their data and their use cases within the application so that they can get a good feel for what it can and can't do. I think demos resonate a lot better when firms actually see their funds, their investors, their investments set up in there. And after those demos, we'll produce scorecards. So, us as the consulting firm, but also all of the key participants or stakeholders from the client side will prepare scorecards, and we'll weight each of those scoring based on different criteria and how our clients might weight them. And then off the back of that, we'll move into a recommendation, right? So we'll have good concrete numbers and scoring to validate why we ranked a specific vendor or service provider higher than some of the others. And we also obviously do a lot of reference calls to speak to other firms or organizations that are similar, that are using the technology or service provider to make sure that they've had a good experience.
Right, super helpful. Maybe one more question. I think we can squeeze it in. So I sit in a product role at Apex Group. So part of my job is to develop products or solutions for our clients, and making sure that our technology stack is innovative and is answering and providing those solutions that we need for clients. If you were sitting on the GP side, what recommendation would you give a GP who has an administrator, maybe working with an administrator for a number of years? How do they know what is out there, right? Do they go to service providers like you, or is there any other resource that they can use and leverage on to really understand what is best in class and what does good look like?
Yep. Yeah. So I would say a lot of our clients engage us for exactly that, to understand, what are their peers doing. We do a lot of peer benchmarking, not only on the technology side, but also around outsourcing, organization structure, headcount, et cetera. So we do a lot of peer benchmarking, and I think we have can share some good insights there. I would also say something that we do see is, at times when we're working with a GP, they may be unhappy with their current administrator's service that they're getting, but they don't really have a good governance framework in place. So we always encourage our clients to make sure that they're having, recurring meetings with their account manager at the administrator, and that they have a clear action plan that they work with their admin to develop and track towards as they move forward. So if there are challenges or pain points, I think the lines of communication need to be open. They need to be communicated between the GP and the service provider, and there needs to be a plan of action that is put in place. And it's not just, a one-time thing that's set up, but it needs to be proactively managed so that, both sides can try to solution for any of those struggles or challenges that they might be facing.
Sounds like an operating model client service question, or model that we need to solve, which could be the next webinar topic. But I think we're just at time. Matt, thank you so much for joining me, and for your incredible insights. And thank you everyone for joining this webinar. If you do have any questions that are unanswered, please do contact me or Matthew directly at LionPoint. But thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Elaine, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.